No?
Public meeting, not in an executive session.
Okay. Welcome to the afternoon session of BOCC. We'll start with finance. Yeah, might as well go over the risk, I guess was what we're really at. So we have to do this. Has to be in a public meeting. Okay. All right.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Shelley Pierce, Risk Manager. The Office of Risk Management is recommending that the board moves forward with formally approving and accepting the settlement agreement to the litigation and authorize the chairman to sign the document.
Okay.
And I've provided the document and a copy of the document to all three of you.
So this is a separation agreement with a former employee that settles terms. There was a suit filed and everything goes away.
That is correct.
No admission of wrongdoing or anything on anybody's part,
That is correct.
just some money exchanged.
It's accurate.
So, Mr. Chairman, do you understand this? I don't. I mean, I understand this. I don't understand the current process. If we're going to do something like this in open session, then the public is entitled to learn every detail of this thing. And I would have thought that would be covered by employee relationships, executive session kind of thing.
I think kind of came out of
The
it.
actual settlement agreement is what the risk pool, the Washington County risk pool negotiated this settlement, and they're asking for our counter signature on this particular document.
Okay, but the reason we appear here is so the public, I mean, that's the real value of OPMA. It's like,
Right.
you didn't sign, you signed this, but you didn't tell us. Well, there's some things we can't tell you because they involve HIPAA or other issues. But in this case, I'm kind of puzzled. Do we have any other ancillary obligation? Like I can take this outside and show anybody?
Well, since it's been in here,
It's a
The
public document, so anybody can request it. It's, you can't
end up
be
being
held
a
secret.
public, it could be subject to public records request, right?
Sure.
I,
It's no different than what we agreed to in executive session when we were discussing options. We didn't really agree. This is the formal agreement part to it.
This is the formal agreement part.
So we got the recommendation from the lawyers.
we're very careful about agreements that involve the legal team.
Mhm.
And that's why I don't know.
I look at this as not much different than approving a labor contract. And, you know, and it's all available if people are interested.
You got an email from Doug on it. I think it came from that direction.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this was sent from Doug this morning. He says the acceptance of the final settlement must be acknowledged in an open session. The prior discussion was an executive session matter, both as a personal matter, basis for discharge, and as a pre-settlement discussion of the terms under pending litigation. The settlement is no longer pending, simply presented as a final settlement to the litigation and request approval for Commissioner Dahl to sign.
I'm okay with his signature. We don't need a formal motion, or do we?
I believe you do.
So I'll move we authorize the chairman to sign the settlement agreement.
No, I prefer if I made the motion.
You know, short timers, you get this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I figured it was old age senility creeping in.
Okay, we have a motion authorizing me to sign this settlement document. I don't see anybody rushing up or hand, so we'll just call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
that take care of what you need?
Mhm.
Okay, Mike.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Moss, Public Services Director. On the agenda in front of you for Public Works, the first item we have is the Little Clamor River Road update. I sent you each a video on Monday and an email of a road that was kind of deteriorating. At least Little Clamor River Road was deteriorating with the heat and extra log truck traffic on that road. Actually, video came from a citizen. We, later that night, we got that email, I think 6 PM on Monday. We instantly went out and sanded that road, put signage up for caution for that area. Monitored it all day yesterday, had no more issues, but we do have to go back and do some repairs in the course of that road. I believe it's like 3/4 of a mile section of road that's been damaged only on the uphill side of Little Clamor River Road. Tomorrow, we're going to go out and grind and pave with our own team, just the rough spots. And then Susan got some estimates or has some ideas of what we need to do for a longer term repair.
So what we're looking at for a longer term repair is to grind out the entire uphill lane, the direction that we're going, and then come in and do an inlay on that. And we're going to if you guys are good with that direction, we will work with Lakeside, who is currently out working just to add it to the end of their contract. So you would see a substantial change order coming your way if that's the direction you would like to go.
I'm familiar with that area, and we had trouble there in the past with some of the resurfacing.
On Little Kalama River Road, or are you thinking Kalama River Road?
No, I'm thinking on Little Kalama River Road.
I can't remember.
No, we got a substantial number of complaints, and I drove up through it, and it wasn't horrible, but it was closer to horrible than okay. And in addition, there's some sections there that it gets snow and ice,
Mhm.
and it's not very wide, and it's up high on both sides. Or I should say, it's high, it drops on both sides substantially, and it seemed frightening to me. Are we in that same area where this happened, or you?
Close, yeah, near the top before you drop back over the side. That is correct. Yes, same area.
Anyhow, it might, and you were thinking of adding extra space for an uphill lane?
We're going to grind and replace the uphill lane
Okay.
because the downhill lane was perfectly fine.
I don't think you have much opportunity for getting more.
I don't think we
room
do either, not in
No.
that area, no. Fairly narrow, so. I think that's we had a few smaller potholes get created yesterday and Monday, very small, but that was really the only big issue we had with the heat on our roads. And
So there aren't too many residents on that section of Little Kalama River.
correct.
There are some down closer to the main drag, but up that far, it's basically logging road access.
Mhm.
Doesn't go all the way down to the bridge.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So you can get all the way over to the. Okay.
Yeah, it would be an outlet road. If we had issues on Kalama River Road, that might be used in certain cases.
It is where the bypass for Kalama River Road connects.
It doesn't hook to Kalama River Road though, right?
Not unless we open up the logging roads, which is one of the agreements that we have in place. When Kalama River Road slides, we have a bypass that we can use through an agreement with Weyerhaeuser, that we'll go out and sign and open the gates up, and it takes them out onto Little Kalama River Road.
How much would we have to pave or build if we were to try to close that loop? Are we talking
Oh,
a
on
mile,
the,
2 miles?
on the Warehouser bypass?
Right,
Or,
essentially,
Whew. I honestly don't know. I know it's a pretty substantial windy way and I know Warehouser would much prefer us to repave our portion of the road instead of having that opened up.
oh, I was just thinking, long-term plan, it seems like if anything happens somewhere, that would be another way for either Little Kalama or Big
Yes. For
Sure,
Kalama.
yes.
Yes, which is, yeah, that was something I have spoken with Warehouser, not about this bypass, but about our Ostrander bypass.
Yeah.
If at any point they're looking at selling it off, please come to us first because we really want to get the rights for that road.
Well,
You said Ostrander, not Burma?
Yes, Ostrander, not Burma.
I think public expects us to take care of the roads, right?
Correct.
Yep.
I think
So
we need
that
to-
one you'll contract out, right? The tearing up,
The,
grinding?
yeah, the final fix, yes. Well, you're going to do some minor repairs in-house to keep it passable until we can get out there and get it.
So that'll be
Repair.
on the schedule for next year?
No,
this year?
I'm going to reach out to, with you guys' approval, we're going to reach out to Lakeside, who's currently under contract, and see if they can add it to this contract.
Add the temporary fix or the?
Permanent.
Permanent fix.
Yeah.
So that would be about 3 or 4 weeks away before we get a permanent fix in place, but pretty quick.
What's the time of year? I mean, it's better than dead winter, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
So,
So we don't need a 24-month lag time for planning and site acquisition and all that kind of stuff?
Would you like me to take a 24-month time? I can.
Whose district is that?
That would be Commissioner Mortensen's
Oh,
district.
We're good.
You could make a hero out of the next commissioner. You're getting it done next time.
Oh, I think we're telling you that we should take care of that. thing.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll get a change order going with Lakeside.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Were you able to get the trucks rerouted?
Yeah,
Talked a
yeah,
little
yes, we
bit
did. Yeah,
about
they're going out the other direction now. Yes, yeah, correct.
So then the next item on our agenda is I have 2 temporary construction easements for the Town Creek Culvert Replacement Project that I'd like the board to give permission for Commissioner Dahl to sign so we can keep moving forward on that project. This is up the Town Creek beyond Greenwood, so it's on the section that I'm willing to drive. They culvert damage during the 2021 event. And we are moving forward with the design. This is a FEMA-funded project.
I think they're okay.
Okay.
Good.
Park Road options.
So Tootle Park Road options, we received a copy of the memorandum that Darren Hopt wrote. No wonder I couldn't find his name. And we're wanting to find out if there was direction or anything that you wanted Public Works to be proceeding with.
I talked a little bit about it on Tuesday after the meeting with Army Corps. They're, and I haven't received it yet, they're gonna send me some stuff. They can help with the geotech stuff.
Mhm.
And they were gonna send me a form and stuff. And I thought when I got that stuff, we kind of get together and instead of you going out for other bids for it, that we try and use their services, because some of it could be paid for by them to get it done too.
That's great, and I will just wait to hear from you.
I think that's probably the best route to head on that one.
Okay.
Is it your intent, Mr. Chairman, to be easy on these two for the entire session?
There's other items.
I got one miscellaneous item that I called Mike on that maybe not be easy on him, so.
I have a 2 I'll be leaving for. Next on maintenance, we have jail and Hall of Justice. Just a quick update. We were preparing last week for the heat wave that of course came over the weekend, and on Monday and Tuesday, we actually chilled the HOJ down quite a bit where we got complaints on, I think Friday or Thursday, that was too cold in certain areas, which is great news for us to know that we were able to get it cold enough. Monday, we maintained pretty good in that facility and HOJ. Yesterday, we had a time where the air handler was not on for an hour or two in the morning, which helped heat that building up. And then we fought the rest of the day just to try to maintain it in the 100-degree heat. Today, we started off a little bit warmer and then we wanted like 75, but we've been maintaining today also. I think as the week goes on and the temperatures come down a little bit, we'll be able to keep it right in the low 70s, which is a battle, but that's what we're doing now in that facility. Our biggest concern this last week has been the jail though, and it has a brand new units on the top. So we've been working with J.H. Kelly pretty much day and night, trying to get those new units going 100%. We're actually waiting for parts tomorrow coming in from the Midwest. There's a couple fans that are down in I think 2 of the 4 units. So we have some temporary units in the admin area going in today. We're just trying to make sure we have the pods cool enough where the inmates are in place. So it's challenging when I visited with J.H. Kelly for a while yesterday on the phone. We're going to schedule a meeting in the next few weeks to see what we're going to do long-term at that location. If these items need to be changed out for different units on the rooftop, there's extra parts that J.H. Kelly maintains at their cost in place, that we can get quicker recovery time, or what our next steps are. But I know Marin at the jail and our staff is very disappointed in what we've got so far going on the rooftop there.
That is disappointing to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of our work orders each the last few years were for the jail roof, and we thought with this project in place that was going to go away, but actually it seems to be it got worse. So.
Air hammer is what kind of device?
Well, the air handler that they have on the roof is actually what I've been visiting with J.H. Kelly, pulling in. It's almost been custom made to get fresh air in for the inmates.
Did you say handler or hammer?
Handler,
Oh,
air handler. I'm sorry.
no, okay, thank you. Air hammers are used in other situations.
Yeah,
I
but
couldn't
not
see
that
what
one.
it would be
Yeah.
used here.
But unfortunately,
Tearing the building down.
for us, that facility or those units, it sounded like when I visited with J.H. Kelly, they were more custom made because of the amount of air they need to move for the inmates in there. It's very similar to a hospital and the size of those units. So between the size of the units and amount of fresh air, there's parts that if you break down, you just can't get off the shelf, that they had to get special ordered and flown in. So that's what our challenge was the last couple of days. So we apologize for that. Apologize, Marin. I know she's just, like I said, disappointed with the brand new units not working on the roof. So we'll work through it, see what our next steps are.
Maybe a small inventory of those type of parts may make sense.
Yep.
Based on the comment from the chairman earlier, this will solve itself in about 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
When there's new commissioners.
No, when, see, he
I think everything gets pushed
was
to Commissioner Bell.
surprised that you could get the work done in a
That
month.
quickly.
Yeah, because of the permitting and all that. I said, well, to wait 4 months and the problem goes away.
Yeah.
It will come back, but
Yeah, we'll have a different type of problem,
you know.
a heat issue. So, so those are the updates from those 2 facilities. The rest of our facilities, I think, went through pretty good. This facility actually felt good most days I walk through there. So, next up, we have the HOJ Hall of Justice HVAC update that we talked about last week a little bit. I'll turn over to Savannah.
Okay, Savannah Clement, Public Services. So as Mike mentioned, I did come to the board last week just to give a heads up that we would be here today to present specifically on an investment grade audit proposal. But kind of based off of the feedback I received from the board in our conversation, I also wanted to give some background information, some context, which is honestly the majority of this handout. So I won't go through it every single bullet item, but in essence, it highlights the history of the Hall of Justice and that the majority of the mechanicals in that building, including HVAC, electrical, and plumbing, are original. I'm sure the board is well aware from a lot of emails received from folks at the hall about the heating and cooling problems over there. So it's been a long time coming. This actually, the Hall of Justice HVAC was on the Ming report. It has been a focus of facilities for probably a decade, if not longer. So when we took over facilities a couple of years ago, we reached out to ESCO companies, which is energy service companies, to give us proposals. And Millig, which Lauren Donley is here to represent Millig, here at the end, I'm going to give her a couple moments. We selected their proposal. We felt it was the best proposal and that for the hall, and we enjoyed working with them, and we really appreciated the work that they put into the proposal. And sorry, Lauren, but we've asked them a lot of questions. They presented a lot of information to us that's probably way outside of their scope on this. So they've been very helpful in helping us on a lot of information. So anyways, yes, they've been around about since 2016 as far as being on site at Cowlitz County. Lauren actually toured the hall back in 2016, as I mentioned. When we selected Millig, we came to the board, if you recall, and we asked the board to approve this HVAC upgrade over a 5-year period, essentially. And the board thankfully approved. I did include that information on the back page that I've given you, just that we allocated $1 million a year. On here, it's 4 years, but I think it'll continue on to that 2029 date, just as a reminder. So where we're at now, we have this investment grade audit proposal, and I'm going to give it to the board here at the end to let you guys review it in your own time. It's a few pages and give you time to develop questions, comments, concerns. And then we'll be back in a couple weeks to go over it again and ask for approval. So it'll just give you guys some time to understand the scope and scale of this project. It is a large project. I think when we came about 6 to 8 months ago, we asked for 8 to 9 million. And thankfully you guys approved that. I did include some funding here on bullet point 3. A lot of our funding we're seeking grant funds to pay for this project. So it's our intent to not completely pay for it out of the general fund. So we already have the 1 million in ARPA direct qualification funds. We have requested 2 million through congressional earmarks. We're working with USDA on this project as well. And then also I just reached out either this week or late last week for local state funds to comply with the energy related building standards that are coming out that we will have to, one of those mandates. So there's funding available for that as well. So I guess I just wanted to present that to let the board know and others who may be watching. I did invite folks at the Hall of Justice to watch or see the recorded version of the presentation so that they would be on board and know what's going on and be able to also, we could field their questions as well. So it was a lot of information. Again, I tried not to go through every single piece, but I did want to focus, unless the board has questions, on the investment grade audit. So I'm going to move on to that. You haven't seen it yet, but it's essentially comprised of a conceptual design. Yep.
I do have a question on something you had mentioned just a little bit earlier.
Sure.
Phased in approach, that's from a structural mechanical standpoint or a financial standpoint?
So when I mentioned it earlier, I was speaking to the financials.
Okay, so the intent is still to get us a uniform solution as
Correct.
quickly as possible, not a phased in stage 1, we do this.
Yes and no. This project will have to be done in phases. And so the investment grade audit, we're proposing 2 phases. It will be accomplished at the end of phase 2.
Okay, each phase can stand alone?
I would also say yes and no. I'm not trying to muddy the waters. I only say yes and no because in the first phase, we're looking to redo all of the electrical panels, which will ultimately affect the second phase. So we're doing a lot more in the first phase than the second phase. So yes. and
Yeah,
no.
I just know that things will take time. Things do change,
That's
lots of circumstances.
Mhm.
It'd be terrible to spend the first half year only to find out we don't want to do that anymore.
Right. So yeah, so phase 1, and this is in the proposal that I will give the board once I give Lauren the opportunity to speak. Phase 1 is all the electrical upgrades that are required to replace those Federal Pacific panels. So that will all get done in phase 1. And then we'll also start on the second floor of the Hall of Justice, which is the majority of our courts, district court, superior court clerks, and superior court administration. So we'd be starting with that, finish that, and then move to the first floor.
In the Hall of Justice has had problems with electricity in lots of areas. This isn't just driven by HVAC then. You're actually trying to solve the overall building electrical problem.
Correct. We have to at this point with this HVAC overall. I mean, it's time anyways, as you mentioned.
It's synergism.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so investment grade audit starts with a conceptual design. Will be provided a life cost analysis, a schematic design, which we'll be working with Millig throughout this entire process. So anytime we present to the board and you guys have feedback or you want to see different things, we'll work with Millig on producing that. At the end of the IGA, we'll have about 60% plans finalized, hopefully. This will also include, which to me is pretty important, is the product manuals and guides. So we don't have that currently on, I would say, 99% of our current systems as far as a product manual guide. So these will be produced as well, which I'm happy with. I look forward to that on all of our systems and software that we're doing with this project. And then lastly, the design, development, and energy services proposal, which will provide a price that's locked in. It'll also provide us with construction planning, and that will all be encompassed in this IGA. Did I miss anything on that?
It's great.
Okay.
Okay, you, on your other public works projects, the rule of thumb is the design or engineering is 10% of the
Yes.
total project cost.
Mhm.
Is that rule of thumb going to apply here?
Lauren, go ahead. I think it's on. Oh, now it's off. Now it's on.
Okay, yes, it is. So the investment grade audit gets.
Actually, if I could interrupt you, could you introduce yourself for the public?
Absolutely. My name's Lauren Donnelly. I am the co-founder and vice president of Millig Design Build. And as Savannah mentioned, I've been here on the Cowlitz County campus of buildings since before my son was born, and he's 6.5. So that's how long I've been looking at these facilities. Millig Design Build is a pre-qualified firm, and we do a lot of county work for county infrastructure projects. We just completed a $5 million project next door at Lewis County, and the facilities department here toured that campus, interviewed the folks over at Cowlitz, or over at Lewis County. And so we've done projects at Wahkiakum County Courthouse. So this is kind of our specialty, work with counties, public entities to renew their infrastructure. As you say, yes, the design of this type of project will be about in that range that you're talking about the 10% range.
And regarding conceptual design, is there a sensible statement you can make about what the bounds of the design are? So we're not going to move walls, or are we, this is all something that I really probably cannot see. It's all behind the walls.
Most of it, yes.
That's right. So the electrical certainly and the mechanical systems are the primary focus of the project. We are also talking to the county about what else could be done if we have spaces cleared out, if we're taking ceiling tiles down and we're doing a lot of work above the ceilings, should we go back in with new LED lighting or ceiling tiles? That's completely up to the county to decide. We can provide some pricing and ideas about that. We've also talked about maybe upgrading the electrical infrastructure out into the space with more receptacles that, more plugs that they don't have in 1975 buildings. So really the option is up to the county about how far to take the project, but the primary focus is the electrical system and HVAC system, and that's what we're focused on, unless the county instructs us to look at other items as well.
I know this is at a slightly lower level than is applicable, but I'll forget if I don't say it now. You are in contact with IT. They've got a lot behind, okay. And then we have standby power there, backup. Do you plan to make a distinction between this outlet is backed up and this one is not?
That'll be done in close collaboration with the county of what should be on emergency
Well, that's on the table.
systems, absolutely.
One thing we did ask Millig to provide quotes for, in addition to, the scope, is the energy and an audit of our UPS battery backup system and what all is running through that. What kind of load do we need to have a backup system, that type of thing. So that's included too as an extra that we've requested quotes for. So that's kind of similar to what you were saying. You can make separate requests and we can approve or deny depending on price and need.
And the analysis includes the geothermal or so-called geothermal.
So we're looking at the geothermal unit as well, which is the board's aware, that has not been what I would consider fully functional for almost since its inception. But we've asked Millig to also take a look at that. And we do recognize we can't do a standalone on geothermal, but how could it complement our system or provide backup in the event that we have issues with our primary system? But yes, we're looking at that as well.
Someday, for my selfish interest, I'd like to find out how that thing actually plays out. We spent a lot of money on it at the wrong time. And I would have been very skeptical then. And so it'd be sweet if it turned out it was actually a good investment.
Something that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding is that there's the well field is also some real estate that the county is interested in potentially doing something with. So ultimately, it's your decision whether or not to, reincorporate that system or maybe do something else with the land that it sits on.
Last interference question. How deep are the well fields?
I believe they're 350 feet deep.
And they are vertical. They're vertical wells approximately.
Vertical wells?
They are vertical. We thought they were horizontal and we pulled the actual original plans and yeah, they're vertical.
And we plan on get cooling, not heating from there.
You can get both from
Both.
there, yeah.
But it's pretty marginal because it just counts on the delta in the temperature.
And
You're
Okay.
exactly right.
yeah,
All right.
Yep, it is marginal. And so the decision that the county will need to make is whether the benefit of kind of using that technology, using the infrastructure that's already there, and maybe a marginal increase in energy efficiency is worth the added complexity and ongoing maintenance to maintain that. So that'll be something that we'll discuss and the county will be
I
able to
love this
decide.
language. Yeah.
That's why I wanted Lauren to come.
Yeah, you're right out of Orange playbook
Yeah.
here.
Okay, well, that's great. No, I love that. No, we're, we come at everything with a clean slate and we're really looking at your need. We've had a lot of discussions and time and we're really here to work with you to find the right solution for your building. So kind of all options are on the table and we'll get it figured out.
From a user's standpoint, function, we've been told from facilities maintenance leads that when in operation, it only gives a 5 degree cooling or heating difference. So to run that whole system, You know, that's what we're getting right
That's
now.
making a lot of assumptions about heat gains or heat losses, but peace,
Mhm,
I'm good.
mhm. Okay. All right. So again, the next steps in this process will be this investment grade audit, which I'll hand out. It does come with a cost. I think I referenced 4 to 5% of the total project costs, which of course, depending on how things come and go and change, we don't have a solid number, but we did quote to the board between 8 and 9 million. However, Lauren, I think you're on the IGA, it states about 280,000-ish.
I think it's 240
Oh.
or something in that ballpark. And that's for the phase 1 project, which is all of the electrical and the HVAC for the second floor, which sets a lot of the infrastructure in place to finish the project out in the second phase. So it is a little bit, the current conception of it is a little bit more front-loaded and a smaller project second, as the second phase. One thing that hasn't been mentioned yet that I think is really important is that the final phase of this project development phase is to do a competitive bidding process. So this project not only includes design to probably the 60 to 70% level, but development of a project manual, all of your bid documents, competitive bidding to get multiple bids on each scope item, and then development of a final turnkey delivered cost. So at the end of this process, there is a project that is fully developed, ready to sort of shovel ready to purchase and move forward with.
I was a little alarmed when they're trying to do a culvert or something like that. They typically will start us with estimates on a 50% design or something. They'll caution us appropriately and all that. But the vagaries out there are substantial. When I think of the Hall of Justice, it's pretty fixed. You're not going to get a landslide in there, and you're not going to find out that there's a limestone cave under it. Why, I would guess you're going to have a design, the design is better than 70%.
So typically, for example, placing the terminal unit in a space, we know it needs to go there. There's a significant amount of design that goes into that sort of last 10%, but we can do pricing knowing that we're going to have a terminal unit in that space, but not knowing exactly where it's going to be and exactly how, what the selection of the diffuser grill is going to look like. So a lot of that comes at the end. So in order to, really kind of right size the effort, we do the sufficient amount of design necessary to get good solid pricing. And then we sort of finish the design concurrent with a lot of, you guys have probably seen very substantial lead times. We're waiting for 23 weeks, 30 weeks, 40 weeks for some electrical components. So we do the design to this, we do all of our due diligence and design to the sufficient point. So when I say 60 to 70%, that depends. The electrical may go to 100 because that probably needs to be done to 100.
Yeah.
Some of the mechanical elements can be done to a lesser degree. So it really just kind of depends on the scope.
Okay, so translates when we go out for the bid and we actually issued a contract, I would expect the change orders would be far less than the usual change orders that you're used to on construction.
In fact, yeah, so the process that we're proposing, our name is Millick Design Build. We're a design build firm. We're accustomed to doing design build projects with a guaranteed maximum price. So we're doing these projects for Washington State University, Island County, many other places around the state. And we actually guarantee a maximum price. We have completely open book financials. So you'll receive every invoice that we receive. Our fees are negotiated ahead of time. So it's basically a cost plus fee. It's a cost of work plus fee. The fees are established at the sign of the contract. And if we estimated or we received initial bids that something would cost $500,000 and it comes in at $450,000, you get a deductive change order for $50,000 and all complete open book financials. And if the cost comes in at, $505,000, well, we had a line item for contingency that is completely open book and known. And if it exceeds that, then that is at our risk. So that's how the open book financials. So there are typically zero change orders at all on our projects unless they are owner initiated change orders, like you've identified some other piece of scope like that paving project. We're going to initiate an owner change order or a deductive change order for cost at the end of the project.
You probably do have built-in protection against inflation going berserk or the supply chain going berserk.
Yeah, so absolutely. And we'll talk about all that as we get closer. There have supply chain, we're with almost all materials and product equipment at this time, we're able to lock in the pricing when we order it. There's some materials like roofing materials where sometimes they won't do that. And so we kind of can figure out a workaround. But for most of the mechanical equipment and the things that we envision for this project, we would expect to be able to get locked in at the time of order. So we have all of our purchase orders, all of our submittals have been pre-approved by the county. They're all ready to go. We sign the contract and we go ahead and get that stuff ordered and lock it in. That's okay. I love questions. This is good.
Yeah.
This is kind of what I do. This is my passion. So I'll talk about it all day.
It is good. We do bug her a lot. So thank you.
Yes, no, I kind of, I sort of act as the quarterback. So you'll see, I'll be the point of contact. I'm our, I would call program manager. We'll have an engineering manager and a pre-construction manager and a construction manager as the project moves through its phases, but I will oversee all of it. And one thing I can say is as the, as the vice president and founder of MILIG, I've got 37 people behind me, and I couldn't be more invested in good outcomes. I've been part of this community for a while, and so our team will do a great job, and we'll try to have you guys be like Lewis County, who speaks really highly of us and tells their neighbors that they should come work with us, and that'll be the goal here too.
Who on your side will be are you going through the maintenance department?
Mhm. Mhm. Our team that in conversations, it's Mike, myself, and Sean.
And Sean.
Sean.
Oh, okay.
The three of
yeah,
us, yeah.
Yeah. Now, don't send me those make-believe pictures.
He knows better now.
So this is a major project,
Absolutely.
probably the biggest one for maintenance.
Mhm.
And you don't have an overall project manager?
We have both of our project coordinators assigned to it, but our project management will be through Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. The board signed that interlocal agreement. And then they contract through MILIG. So it's a trifecta. It's the county, Washington, and then we contract through MILIG. They're managing the contract, they're managing the project, and then we have our project managers, Lauren, and their coordinators.
The reason I am a little dubious is you guys are really busy
Mhm.
and you keep adding stuff to your workload. And that means stuff is not going to get done. And on a project like this, it's going to be the oversight that's not going
Yeah.
to be done. They're coming down from Olympia twice a month. I'm just a little leery of that approach. I want somebody here
Absolutely.
to watch a little bit. At any rate, at least 6 months of program management is really important to me right now.
If we took this project on ourselves, it would be challenging, but having a third party like MILIG who does this for a living and works with counties, they're going to be the project manager of this, correct?
That's right. So we'll start biweekly meetings. You guys are welcome to that. We have we will have our Meeting minutes will be maintained live on the meeting invite, which will be accessible to anybody. We will have a project schedule, a project development schedule, a project execution schedule that will be maintained live based on our network. And so we really put a huge amount of effort into planning. A project like this is going to be very disruptive, the construction portion of it. The electrical work will require cutting electrical service to the building for some amount of days, which will need to be heavily coordinated. Some of it'll be loud so there's there is a huge amount of coordination and planning that goes into something like this. It will take most of a year to get to the point where we're ready to actually break ground. And that will be a rather large team on our end working on that. We can provide sort of any communications materials, updates. I can come here every Wednesday, whatever you guys need, we can make that happen.
You said breaking ground, it's more like cutting concrete. isn't
Yeah.
it? Okay, I didn't think we were gonna be digging a whole lot.
No, sorry, figure of speech.
So
Although uncomfortable fact is there's probably more space underneath the concrete than there was a few years ago, right? Because the sawdust is continuing to deteriorate.
Possibly,
Mhm.
yes.
You don't want to look.
We do look.
So you open the door to a problem, I think, that is, I don't know how you're going to solve it, which is running the Superior Court, running all the courts simultaneous with the construction.
Yep.
So don't necessarily address it
If-
here,
Mhm.
but it's, bless you if you can have it figured out.
Yeah.
We will get it figured out. We have executed, $6 million projects in historic county courthouses from 1890. This is kind of our wheelhouse. It's a challenge. But every 50 years or so, you have to do work like this, and we know how to do it. So we'll help you get through it.
So you're going to teach the judges and the clerks and the jurors ASL.
Well, hopefully, we'll develop a working group. We'll open a line of communication. We'll share this is what, we'll get some of the more, interested parties, the folks that have a very interested stake. We'll meet with them. We'll have a pre-planning. There's a series of events that'll happen to bring everybody on board and to make sure that everybody's aware of what's coming. There's also, there's cost implications to everything. At Wahkiakum County Courthouse, our project there, we did on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and they did court on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And there's an additional cost to doing swing shifts and working on the weekend. That's something, all of those things are decisions to be made by the county depending on, what is acceptable and where people come in.
I'll add too that the Hall of Justice, the folks there, judges, the sheriff, the PA's office, they have all been very supportive, and they know that we'll have to make some changes and there will be disruptions, and they anticipate that. And I had been in contact with Kim Bocut at the event center, kind of seeking some temporary space perhaps next summer. So she's aware of it, also on board, schedule permitting. So I think people are so ready for this that we have a lot of enthusiastic support right now. Just hoping that continues.
They will until the first jackhammer goes.
Well, we hope they won't hear that and they won't be there.
I do have another question, which is on buildings, old buildings, it's very difficult to, even on new buildings, very difficult to get proper ducting and venting, considering the seasonal changes and the insulation on one side and so in this project, you're going to tackle all of that. So presumably there won't be the cold spots that you just mentioned.
That's right. So our engineers are already begun on the load calculations. One thing that's going on with that building right now is that there's not a lot of individual control of spaces. One set of ducts and one reheat terminal unit controls the temperature that branches off and then supplies like an entire kind of pod of spaces. So none of those folks have individual temperature control. We internally, we haven't shown you guys this yet, but we've mapped out exactly how it lays out now. And we'll go through a process of deciding what spaces need more individual control, what are thermally similar and can stay on the same branch duct. And so we'll go through that whole process. The intention is to reuse as much of the existing ductwork as possible for to provide outside air, tempered air to the spaces. Sheet metal is extremely expensive right now, and sheet metal workers are scarce. And so sheet metal is a big expense. We're going to try to reuse as much of what's there as possible.
It should be an easy solution since it hasn't been used properly at all for years. So, right? I mean, it hasn't been used up. It hasn't been exchanging air healthy. It's right. I mean,
I have no response. yeah.
Management of those easy solutions will be available at the beginning of the year.
but then I'd say if the judges need, they've got 2 courtrooms here, they can take over. We can have our meetings at the boathouse,
Yeah.
to be honest. I mean, with the number of people that show up,
Mhm.
we could easily shift down there. So, but that's only 2 rooms, so.
I did want to kind of end with just putting it out there, if the board would like to kind of tour the mechanical areas. I don't know if board members, if you guys have ever been, and seen it and walked it. It's overwhelming, but it's eye-opening. I always, seeing is believing. So I extend that out, especially before we start with anything. I'd love for you guys to see the before at any point. So just let us know.
So I've seen mechanical stuff over at the annex and upstairs here.
Mhm.
Is it more of the same or is it dramatically different?
I would say it's not more of the same, no. So.
A little different world.
Mhm. And we could even bring you guys
1970s as opposed to 1950s and 1920s.
Just because so many things got added on
The
at the HOJ
Band-Aids.
over the years.
Mhm.
It's challenging to even know what line goes where.
Yeah, for example, well, similar to actually in this building you have that too, but there you have a lot of pneumatic controls out in all the spaces, and then there's a Siemens digital overlay for just the central systems. But that system itself is already from, I think, 2006. So, imagine your computer or your cell phone from that time. It's very well outdated, and also Siemens no longer is able to
Supports it.
support it. They don't have parts and materials or people to maintain it. So you basically have a kind of hanging on by all the controls are really kind of hanging on by a thread over there. So yeah, there's the mechanical spaces are there is a significant need, but there are really good bones over there. There's physical space, especially when we clear out some of the older equipment, and there's a huge amount of opportunity for cost savings. We have extremely excessive energy use at that facility and also very high maintenance costs. So one thing that maybe wasn't even acknowledged yet in the financial pro forma is the annual annual cost savings between kind of maintenance and operations of the current facility that'll be seen after this project, which could be in the ballpark of $300,000 or $400,000 a year, staying in the county's pockets.
Mhm. On the handout there, I have under the first bullet is the maintenance costs for 2023, including utilities as well as year-to-date this year. So they're very high.
Yeah, already, yeah, it's close to $600,000 a year. So we can certainly, when this project is done, the HVAC and mechanical is the bulk of those maintenance costs. So that will be a tiny fraction of that, just sort of your annual filter changes and typical maintenance and stuff.
So again, game plan is I'm going to hand out the proposals, let the board go through the information and come back in a week or two and we'll talk again. At that point, we'll probably ask for a board permission to move forward with that investment grade audit.
Perfect.
Thank you. Very nice to
Thanks.
meet you all. Thanks
Yeah,
for
thanks for coming by.
giving me a moment and really, really excited to work with you all. Thanks.
Did you have anything else, Mike?
No, other than miscellaneous for you guys.
Okay. I have a miscellaneous I'll approach just because I can't let it go. Ever since I've read it, I don't understand it. And it was the interlocal agreement with the cities on the landfill. And it was done before we owned the landfill. And when I read through it, it's never sit right with me because I don't even know why we do this. So I called Doug and he sent me a couple of things on it. I guess you looked in 2021 at trying to redo this because it didn't make sense. Some of the things he says in one of his emails, I continue to question the legality and wisdom on that. And another issue is the agreement also has the cities and counties advisory board having, in parentheses, unlawful veto authority over BOCC budgetary fiscal decisions. So I'm thinking this thing needs to be updated since we pay the debt service, we pay the operating expense, we set aside the money for shutdown. I don't know that any other business would allow other entities to veto and tell them what to do with it. I can't imagine Bud Clary or Fiber or Safeway or Walmart letting outside agencies tell them what to do. And I get the cities won't like it, but it's not about trying to hurt the cities. It's trying to put something in place that actually makes sense to what we're doing. But if nobody has a flavor to look at it, I'm good with that. It's hard for me to let it go.
I agree with you completely. I certainly spent a fair amount of time looking over some things in the past. And there's some hard to explain things in the past. And that's a euphemism for, that's a euphemism. Anyhow, if we have considered in the past rewriting that or changing that.
Correct. Actually, I believe Doug rewrote one in 2021, 21. And that was presented, I believe, may be presented to the county or the cities. I remember doing a workshop with the cities and the attorneys.
The message I got from Doug was that the cities really didn't I don't know what they didn't like it at all. And then the county just backed off of it and said, okay.
Yeah, I don't recall the reasoning specifically.
Yeah.
I do know what you just said is totally spot on. And I do know in some discussions, it was fairly clear that because of the arguments you presented, the municipalities, they're not responsible. They've never been responsible. So how can they have control? And right now, we're still arguing about some things, aren't we?
We're still trying to move rates at the transfer station. And that's been going on for 3 years. I think we haven't raised
The
rates since,
discussion.
the discussion's been, and we haven't raised rates since 2020. Because it takes a vote of the governance committee to get to that point and it's
Yeah,
deadlocked.
and that's a little misleading in the sense that raise rate says you started from suggests you started from an even base, but in fact, you were subsidizing that for quite a bit.
Correct. We're probably in the neighborhood of $1.5 million loss at the transfer station this year due to the fact that the rates have stayed the same since 2020.
And I didn't even know where we're at with that. I'm not looking at that so we can go out and gouge anybody.
no.
I'm just saying this doesn't make sense to let others have control over a business entity that we have all the financial responsibility for. And I don't mind having the interlocal agreement. It just needs to be brought up to modern to what works now, how it's working now.
We've been blessed.
What's the cancellation clause?
Oh, let me look.
I'm catching them cold on this, so I.
Well, there's a lot of detail there. We, all we can
We always
resolve-
talk about being able to cancel an agreement in 60 days or 6 months or something like that. Is there
These are
no,
different.
is there no escape clause?
There is an amendment, supplementation, or termination clause from the original 2007 agreement. It is, the interlocal agreement shall be reviewed by the parties every 5 years or in conjunction with the solid waste management plan update, whichever occurs sooner, and may be amended, supplemented, or terminated upon the agreement of both the county and all cities that executed the original agreement with the same formalities as the original agreement. Any amendment, supplement, or termination shall be in writing and shall be signed by the authorized officer of the county and the cities at least 30 days in advance of the effective date of such action.
I'm just kind
So
of,
unless they agree, you can't get out of it.
There's also a duration clause. The duration, this interlocal agreement shall continue to be in full force and effect through the calendar year of 2045 or the duration of the Waste Control Recycling Incorporated contract, whichever occurs first, unless terminated as described in section 11. And that's the previous section I read.
my suggestion would be we have our Doug and them look at it and if they can give us a more modern, up-to-date one and we're all good with it, I would push forward with it, but I'm just one. And if the others don't want to do that, I'm good with
No,
that too.
they're two
Okay.
at least. And we have on board Foster.
That'd be my recommendation, is send it to our legal attorney here locally, but also Steve DiGiulio and Jay Donovan are legal experts for us under contract.
I just think it needs to be brought up to modern. When I see things in there that say parentheses unlawful, or we could have exposure in other areas, I don't know why we'd put the county on that, at that risk.
I don't, many years ago, I was trying to present something to the Longview City Council, and I said, we can nail these things down in a contract. And Chet McKinster says, well, I don't believe in contracts. At that point, by the way, I didn't know what to do. If we don't believe in contracts, we might as well pack the country up, because there can be no agreements.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna sit here being Pollyannish. They're not gonna like it. They'll, but I'm big enough. I'll go talk to them myself if you want to, since I'm the instigator. But
Well, I'm going to take that away from you. You're not the instigator. You're the follower up on this.
okay.
When we talked about rates about the transfer station, we're not even trying to recoup the $1.5 million loss. What we're also trying to do is, we're okay with a certain amount of loss because we know we have a landfill in our backyard. But also it sets the minimums for the area, for the transfer stations. And the minimums are pretty low, really low compared to other counties. And we also, so it creates lines on the 3rd Avenue, which the city of Longview has complained about how long the lines are going out in their city streets because of our lower rates or lower minimum rates. Because if you have higher minimums, maybe people can put less trips to the landfill or to the transfer station. So there's other reasons behind looking at your rates each year or every other year, but also for out of county rates. If we want to make sure our rates are a lot lower internally compared to our neighboring counties, so they don't come to our transfer stations, that's all tied together in the rate structure. So that makes it a little bit more challenging for us.
And I don't think we should lose the focus of wanting to do the best deal we can for our county.
Correct.
I think we're all partners here and we want to do the best for our county, at least as long as I'm sitting here. I want to make sure that we're not gouging them just because we can.
No, our goal has always been to keep the rates as low as we possibly can for county citizens.
Yeah, we're very good on they're operating this thing as a business, as they should. So when they contract for outside the county, it falls under a market bidding scheme. If we did not take waste from outside the county, our our rates here for operating would be triple, quadruple maybe.
They would be significantly higher.
Yeah, by a big number.
Mhm.
So fortunately, they operate it as a business and we know that that pays us off and pays the citizens of the county. Yeah. What, we pull in 850,000 tons now.
Oh,
800.
yeah, we'll be about 800.
And from in-county, maybe
400.
at most. Yeah.
Yeah, between the mills and our transfer station, yes.
It's a good business. And it's almost
Yeah, we're-
recession
We're
proof.
very fortunate. We're very fortunate. So, said that for a long time.
Did you ever have a chance to talk to any of the commissioners who were involved in signing the original agreement on why?
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just wondering if the chairman had talked to any of the previous commissioners who were here when they signed on to that agreement. to
Well,
give you
when
a
the
little
original
background.
agreement, we didn't own the landfill, so it made total sense.
What do you mean we didn't own the landfill?
In the-
We've always owned the landfill. We've always owned a landfill. We own Tenant Way. But that was the landfill at the time the agreement was made. So, I mean, it's not,
Well, the original agreement was the county kind of, way I read through that, they kind of gave you the authority to kind of negotiate rates and stuff. And then there was a setup aside for improvement type things that had to be done.
Yeah, so there was an agreement prior to the ILA with Waste Control in which it was envisioned that when the Tenant Way landfill filled, that waste would be railed away. And so any of those fees would have been to, for an intermodal site and
Right.
maintenance of a fee structure to the transfer station. But there was no capital or other facilities of the idea at that time, from what I read here.
So is any of that stuff in play anymore?
Oh, no.
No.
The contract was rewritten in 2012 for Waste Control that did away with all that. We had a new contract in place.
So am I wrong? Was that not a Weyerhaeuser landfill that we have up there? And we
headquarters, the
purchased it
headquarters
from-
landfill is
Yeah.
the warehouse.
And
So
that's who
we
we
didn't own
bought it
that,
from, right?
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about here.
But the management agreement was predated that.
And
It
we
was,
didn't-
it was operational under with the Tenant Way facility.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the,
yeah, so.
this agreement came on before we owned that landfill up
Right.
there. So to have
Right.
others tell us what to do with something we paid for, I struggle with that. I don't know of any business that operates that way. And it's not that I'm trying to be hard with the other people. I just think we need to get this cleaned up.
Yeah, there are other issues in there that are hard to understand.
But I don't know where you want to go with it, but
Well, it sounds like from direction of board, at least two board members, if you want us to move this to legal to take another look at it, to clean it up, we can send it out.
I would ask you to do that.
Okay.
And, but by the way, in this issue regarding the transfer station, there hasn't been any exercise or intent on our part to do something without detailed discussion, explanation with the Kelso and Longview. City managers attend that meeting and
Well,
we've been
there's,
discussing changing the rates now for 3 years because they don't want to change their rates at all.
yeah, we still have that other board, the Solid Waste Advisory
Correct.
Board, and I'm not talking about that so much. I'm just talking about that interlocal agreement needs to make sense for what we're currently doing.
That's the governance board he's talking about.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So tell us the reason that you haven't changed the rates in 3 years or something like that.
It takes a majority vote from from the governance committee, which is a 4-member board. From there, it goes to SWAC as for a recommendation, and then from the SWAC to the county commissioners for final vote. And,
That first step,
but we haven't made it out of the first step.
that first step is what you're objecting to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it covers a lot of different rates, from hazardous household waste to tires to, there's a lot of things, refrigerators, there's a lot of things in that setting. It's just not rates for people taking a garbage can there. That's all been kind of stuck.
We have a lot of advisory boards that give us some ideas on what to do, so I don't have any trouble with the advisory board. I think that first part of it doesn't make sense
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, it's more than an advisory board the way it's written currently.
Well, I think we start
Yeah.
with legal looking at it and
I
saying
agree.
what makes sense for the county.
We will do that.
I'll be getting some phone calls.
I don't see any hands up.
Thank you.
Anything else under miscellaneous?
Nope.
We have, do we need moving? We have an ADA thing? Is that what
Oh,
we're doing?
sorry.
Okay. Susan, I took some of your time. I apologize. Okay.
Now, Susan, it's after 2:30. If you keep talking faster, we're going to be complaining because we can't hear you.
You know, I was telling Susan as she's moving up here before the meeting that I really appreciate the fact that they'll take the time and answer questions from the citizens. I think that's important because it gives them a chance to know the people as we know them, that they're just not seen as somebody that sits behind the desk and is trying to make their life miserable. I want them to get to know that we have totally competent people and they're just trying to work within the system. So I do appreciate that they do that. Wow.
Before you get started, Susan, or just as you start, one of the most important things we really need to address in there is people with speech impediments. I'm sure you addressed it in there, right?
If it impacts your operation of the public right of way, then it would be addressed in this.
Okay.
Your legs don't stutter on your bicycle, so you don't qualify.
All right.
All right, so I wanted to bring before you the American with Disabilities Act Self-Evaluation and Transition Plan for Public Right-of-Ways. So what you've been handed out is basically the pages I'm going to be following through, a complete copy of the self-evaluation report and a complete copy of the transition plan for your reading pleasure. I have copies for the public. Obviously, I overplanned. So we're going to talk about our purpose and scope, our self-evaluation, the transition plan, what the recommendations are, and then what our next steps are going to be.
All of this stuff, I'm assuming started in Washington DC or Olympia.
This is a Washington DC because it's part of the American with Disabilities Act that was enacted. Let me see, I wrote it down in July of 1990 and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This requires jurisdictions that have more than 50 employees complete a self-evaluation and a transition plan for their facilities.
So this act was passed when?
The original, so 1990 was
That's what I
the,
thought.
and then 1973 was the original. Yes, we are behind. The requirements,
Just a few years.
just a few years. We are not alone being behind. These, I believe Longview is a year, maybe 2 years ahead of us. They completed their plan. WashDOT is still in the process. But in the this is now one of the questions when you're applying for pedestrian bicycle grants and safety monies, if you have your self-evaluation complete and your transition plan established. So to get ahead of that, of not having it in place, we went ahead and belatedly started this. It is, for us, it's actually easier than the cities because it requires that you, for your self-evaluation, excuse me, to go out and inventory all of your facilities. And so for public right-of-ways, you're looking at your curb ramps, making sure that they meet the maximum slopes and have your truncated domes. That's just the easiest way to explain those little bumpy things, or the truncated domes. You inventory all your sidewalks for cross slopes that are above 2% and lips that are above 1/4 of an inch. And then you look at your driveway drops and in other locations, the push buttons for the streetlights for your crossing signals. So that is a requirement of this to be inventoried. We had our inspection group do our inventory during the off season. So they were out doing it. It took them a couple winters of getting this set up to go. We utilized a GIS app. So they had pull down menus and they went ahead and did the inventory. Because of the staff limitations of trying to be working on projects, we did hire a consultant to analyze that information and keep me moving through the process. So in addition to our inventory, we have to review our policies and programs and do a robust public engagement portion. So that is the self-evaluation. And then once you complete that, you create your transition plan where you're going to come up with what policies you need to be updating and how we're going to create a schedule to remove the facilities that create a barrier. So as I described our inventory for the self-evaluation, we have completed that. This will be an ongoing database that we will actively maintain as we remove things and as new are installed. That's why we were using our inspectors, because they inspect as new driveways and new sidewalks go in as part of the neighborhood. So it made a logical choice that they would be the ones to use that app to be familiar with it. So we've completed that. We went out and did our public involvement and outreach. So we held a public open house on March 26 that explained our project's needs, the purpose, and discuss what the barriers are to the disabled community. We held that at the event center. After that event, we sent out postcard notifications to, in our case, the majority of our ramps and sidewalks are in Lexington and West Longview, and then the few in Kelso. We have a few up in Castle Rock, in Kalama, and Woodland. So to catch the majority of the people who are using our transportation system that's set up for pedestrians, we sent out postcard notifications to everyone that pays the stormwater fee, because that hits all of Lexington and West Longview. So that was the logic, to spread it as wide as we can. That notification was when our next public open house was, and to please participate in our online survey. So we held our second open house on May 20th to solicit comments on the locations where the improvements are most needed for the disabled community, and to review our online survey results. That was also held at the event center. So based on our self-evaluation and our meetings, we created the transition plan, which includes all the facilities that need to be replaced. We have predominantly curb ramps were the recommendation. We developed a roughly 20-year replacement program for those, unfortunately at a cost of about $4 million over 20 years, local funds, because funding for general replacement to bring it up to standard is not available. If it is included as part of a project, let's say I was rebuilding Sparks Drive and doing all the sidewalk, curbs and gutter, they could be included in a project of that magnitude. We did establish priority areas starting in Lexington and then moving west Longview, and then within those areas, hitting public facilities such as schools or areas that serve, more likely to serve the disabled community, such as elder facilities, people going to medical centers, those were the areas that we established as focus. So the report has recommendations. Recommends we designate a public works specific ADA coordinator to handle the right-of-way specific issues. We have an ADA coordinator countywide, and that is currently Jessica Warren, who's the director of HR. This recommendation would be for a safety supervisor. So if somebody called up with a complaint about a handicap ramp or a sidewalk being out of whack, we would have them reach out to our safety supervisor, who currently is Justin Hudak. So he can coordinate with getting that into the transition plan and working with the road crew to address some immediate needs that would be occurred. They also suggest some updates to our standard details. They are a little dated, and we are in the process of updating those. The recommendation of implementing a curb ramp replacement program, and then keep updating our inventory as things change.
Is this a piece of, or is Complete Streets is this a piece of Complete Street?
It could be a piece of Complete Streets, but it is not, it's separate from Complete Streets. We do not have a Complete Street ordinance. It's not something that we have been directed to pursue. I mean, we could look at a Complete Street program ordinance, but it's not something, and we'd have to coordinate, we would coordinate that with building and planning, because it would impact some development standards if we want it to go that direction.
You got a lot of questions. I'm not sure when and if I should even ask them. They're mostly mechanical. Like if I use what I see in Longview, the bump outs seem like they're adding hazard. The bumpies, that's if, you know, my dad was 93 walking around and these things, and those bumpies are more of a problem than an asset. And just all kinds of stuff. It's like, I once heard one of the previous commissioners talk about the bike route, and his idea of the bike route was just ride the bicycle on the dike. And I'm like, that's not what a bicyclist would do. That's just for entertainment. Bicycle is actually a tool, and sidewalks are a tool. And I'm having a little bit of trouble. This long list, this spreadsheet, this huge spreadsheet.
Yes, it is.
How many thousands or tens of thousands of dollars did we spend to put this in? The cross slope, 6.5. The B% run slope, 2.6. I mean.
So this was done by an inspector during the off season. So he would go out with a smart level and start at one block in Lexington, and he'd do a block at a time. I'm just picked Lexington because that's our biggest area. And so he'd go down and drop his lock level, pull down, because we had the apps on their cell phones or their tablets, depending on the inspector, and they just had drop-down menus that they could just drop what the cross slope was, what the street location was, and he could just move place to place.
And that was done to comply with this.
Yes.
See, I think if I run down a sidewalk, I'm on the sidewalk and trees have cracked the sidewalk, and like, that's a problem, and we should fix that. But to go back and do something like even a bike route, I have no pretense you take an existing street and garbage it up, I mean, mess with it in order to accommodate bicycles there, but I think we should be prudent with new streets. We don't do, we do the former, we don't seem to do the latter, which is driving me nuts.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
So the recommendations of this was to fix the bumps as we came across them, because you can sometimes grind those out or put little ramps
Oh,
on
the
them.
yellow bumpies?
No, the dislocations in the joints of the sidewalks. The yellow bumpies are a requirement of the
I figured
details.
they were, yeah.
So, no, I can't grind those out. I have plenty of ramps that they would like me to put them on. So,
It's not easy to go over them on a wheelchair.
so what I have read about them is that they, yes, I would not necessarily argue that they're not easy with a wheelchair, but that they're for the visually impaired, so that they know the sidewalk's coming to an end because their canes will hit that. Or the yellow is actually a contrasting color that they can see if they're not cane, don't use a cane. So there's a reason for the color and for the raised and the size and the spacing, because if you look at that spreadsheet, some of the ramps, what is wrong with them is they either don't have the truncated domes or they're not spaced correctly.
If I'm a blind person and I'm trying to walk along the street, I come to the corner and the ramp now drives me down. I'm gonna have 1 foot going on the high side and 1 foot down the ramp. I'm gonna fall. I mean, there's just lots of things that you can't be everything to everybody is really what I'm saying. So I'll stop. My apologies.
So I will tell you, Commissioner Weber, like the first 10 pages are what is important, is the text. The rest are all the
Actually, the last
appendices.
page is what's important. It's the cost.
The cost,
estimate.
yes, the $4.5 million cost to replace all the ramps that are an issue.
All the ones that are in this list?
201 ramps.
201, 200 ramps do not meet the requirements.
And you said over what time period?
20 years.
20 years.
Was that the $2023 or no, never mind.
It is $2024, yes. So
The first half of the year or the second half?
first half, because it was completed in first half.
So I am curious as to the process you're going to use to prioritize, because you got to pick somehow. Do you have an advisory committee made up of disabled people?
Unfortunately, I do not. If you want, I'll tell you my sad tale of woe. So our open houses, our first open house, we had 6 attendees. All attendees were from organizations that we reached out to. My second open house, we had 0 attendees. We had 22 responses to the online survey, and I will tell you at least one of them was mine. I tried to encourage people to fill it out. So, and most of the responders were people who lived in Longview. So no, I don't have any good contacts to reach out. So it will be me saying, okay, let's start in Longview or let's start in Lexington, and we'll either work out from the school and then do West Longview and work out from Robert Gray is in the county or other locations. So,
I would suggest
okay,
a method of contacting disabled folks would be to talk with the operators of paratransit who are specifically designed to go door to door for those who are disabled. The bulk of them, of course, do live inside the cities. I mean, that's for sure, but the Cal Transit Authority collects taxes and pays for areas out in some of the unincorporated areas. Hall Road, no.
no,
And Lexington just recently, and they may be joining the area if they agree to raise taxes. But the paratransit has some data on where likely users are. Obviously, if they have access to transit, they're not going to be pedestrians trying to negotiate the curb cuts and so on. But getting folks like that, it's difficult because it's outside the cities, and it makes it difficult for folks to particularly identify.
There was a place in Lexington that didn't have a sidewalk, and the bus, if it goes up there, they would tell you that.
And paratransit was one of our attendees at our first open house.
Yeah.
And so they had some information that they shared about bus routes being important and for people to be able to get to the bus stops when there were such locations.
There was an organization developed called First People. I think that was the name that they used. It sounds like that might be more Native American, but
People
it's, First People, they were the ones who developed the priority list for the city of Longview when they were beginning to do curb cuts. But, you know, I've been with them for quite a while, so I don't know if that organization is still around. But in terms of doing the priorities, I just have a hard time saying the Hall Road is gonna be attracting a lot of disabled folks. Lexington, though, we've discovered it's more
Lexington,
likely in
yeah.
Lexington.
Ask Free Guy.
Ask Free Guy, okay. So what we thought our priority would be to start in Lexington and start knocking out the Lexington and then doing West Longview, just for those reasons, because those would be the more likely places that they would live, just for the alternative transportation of paratransit and the cost of housing and not having to drive as far for everything.
And the $205,000 a year comes from the road fund?
Yes. That's $200,000 of something else that we're not going to go, because sidewalks are considered a portion of your transportation system. So I will tell you straight out, there are two mistakes in these. One, I found two so far. My first read, I found two. One reference to city that they missed, and then one typo with the numbers. So I kind of outlined a few next steps, was to incorporate it, any recommended revisions that you guys might have. Did you want me to bring this back again? Did you want a couple weeks to digest, maybe bring it back? Kind of what direction you want it to go, because at least the transition plan needs to be adopted by the board, and then Public Works has started on the details, and then we will incorporate the replacement projects in the 6-year plan. It will actually, that line that I have that I don't generally use at the bottom for the sidewalk improvements, it was intended for this program.
And the suggestions coming from the folks who have the grants are, we need to have something in place,
We need to have something in place.
because that helps our case to get funds.
Helps our case to get funds.
It hasn't been a factor yet, or do you know that?
So the last safety program that we submitted, grant the application, so that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was a checkbox that said you had your choice. ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. And your choices were complete, started, or no. So at that point was when we were starting our self-evaluation. So we started, and I believe it was at that time a non-scored question, but I can see moving forward that would become a requirement, because I know for some of the TIB grants, you have to have a complete street ordinance, and I believe somebody told me that this transition plan needed to be impacted. That's hearsay, I won't swear by that one, but I know the complete streets was required.
I'm actually kind of impressed with the detail and the identification, that the inventory that happened. Having a 20-year plan, I think is fine. And starting in Lexington probably makes as good, unless you discover there's an area in West Longview that may be lacking, and I don't know. That's Rick's district. I'm not that familiar with it.
Well,
Well, I'm
most of
actually
it's Rick's
surprised
district.
That since this was initiated in 73 and redid in 90 or whatever, that it took them this long to make it a requirement to have the plan.
It's really not a requirement, is it? It's only if you want to get grants.
If you want to get grants, it's a requirement in the law itself. And I know that, I don't remember which community I heard, by not having one has had the disabled community raising issues with that.
Yeah.
So
It actually did become a campaign issue in one of my campaigns for city council. Somebody in a wheelchair filed against me.
Well, really?
I asked her why. She said,
Is it because of the ledges in the sidewalk? I
No.
know you hear that a
No.
lot in Longview.
no, it was actually a very good reason. I would have been mad too. She said, she was wheelchair bound, and I met at her home, and she said, well, you better keep up with me because I'm going to show you what the problem is. So she put it in high gear, literally down the elevator and out the front door, down Broadway, about three blocks away from where she lived. There was a wonderful curb cut. And that's all it was, the cut. They had failed to put the slope in. They had just cut the concrete. And she says, I take that as an insult that, they forgot about us again. And I said, I agree with you. I talked to the city manager, shared, the experience, and he was embarrassed. And sure enough, the staff had forgotten. They'd done the cut on a Friday and failed to go back to it the next week. And it got taken care of, got installed, and that's not whether a program like that should go forward. That's if you make an agreement, you better keep up with it and do what you say you're going to do. So.
I'd like a little time to look it over.
yes.
Yeah.
And for the public, it is on, if you go to the Public Works portion of the website and you click on ADA information, there is a tab that it'll take you to, and it has copies of these for review. And if they prefer hard copies or emails, we can certainly provide that to them by contacting the Public Works.
Any other questions? Thanks for your work on that, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Don't go away if I could have a few minutes with you after the meeting.
Do we have anything else? I think we're all good. Okay, we'll adjourn. Thank you.